welcome to the fall semester exam review. We are going to do questions 1 through 10 in this video. So let's go ahead and get started with question number 1. So in question number 1, you need to read the story at the top before looking at the actual recipe. So it said that Jen, Lee, and Sarah decided to make a pancake breakfast for 6 people. Okay, so let's underline things that may be important. That doesn't necessarily mean it is important, but we're going to look to see if it is. They found a recipe that will make 12 silver dollar pancakes, and we see that here, that this makes 12 pancakes. They need to make 30 silver dollar pancakes, so each person gets 5. So they want to make a total of 30. How much of each ingredient will they need to make 30 silver dollar pancakes? So the way I think about this is that one recipe is going to make 12 pancakes. 2 recipes, I'm just call it 2R, is going to make 24 pancakes. And 3 recipes is going to make 36 pancakes. So 3 recipes is too much. You'll have extra left over. So if you think about it, half of this recipe is going to give me 6 pancakes. So if you think about 2 and a half, 2 gives me 24, the half gives me a 6. That gives me exactly 30 pancakes. So they are going to make this recipe 2.5 times, and we need to find the ingredients. So first, let's find the flour. So we know that flour is 1 1/4 cups for one recipe, but we need it 2.5 times. So we are going to have to multiply this by 2.5. Well, we've talked about to multiply mixed numbers, we need to make them improper. So 1 times 4 is 4, plus that 1 is 5, gives me 5/4 times 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 is 5, so you get 5/2. And if we multiply that straight across, we get 25/8. But that is improper, so we simplify it. 8 goes into 25 3 times, with 1/8 left over, because 8 times 3 is 24, and you subtract the 24 from the 25. So for flour, it's 3 1/8. So the egg's pretty easy. Okay, so egg would just be 1 times 2.5, which gives us 2.5 eggs. But someone said, well, you can't do 2.5 eggs. You're right. So they are going to need 3 eggs for this. There won't be one similar to this on the test, but just so you know, you cannot have half of an egg. Okay, so we've did the flour, we've done the egg, so we've done a whole number. Let's do the baking powder. So BP for baking powder. So for baking powder, you have 3 teaspoons times the 2.5. So once again, change them to improper, 3/1 times the 5/2, which gives you 15/2, which simplifies. 2 can go into 15 7 times, which is 14, which leaves you with a half left over. So you would have 7.5 teaspoons. Okay, and let's do one more. Let's do the 3/4 cups of milk. And I'll leave you with the rest to do on your own, because this one problem is taking a long time. So for the milk, you would do 3/4, let's write that better, 3/4 times the 2.5, but you would still need to make it improper, so 3/4 times 5/2, which gives me 15/8, which simplifies. 8 goes into 15 1 time, so you have 1 7/8 of a cup of milk. So you still need to try these other ones, the salt, the tablespoons of salad oil, the sugar, but I've done 4 examples for you. Okay, question number 2. Paul has 3/5 of a roll of speaker wire. His sister uses 1/4 of it to set up the speakers in her room. How much of the whole roll of speaker wire did Paul's sisters use? Well, first we have to think she used 1/4 of the 3/5. So he had 3/5 of the whole amount, and she used 1/4 of that. And when we are talking about fractions, and they're talking about 1/4 of an amount, that means they're going to multiply this by 1/4. which gives 3/20. So she used 3/20 of the wire. And it says, what fraction of the whole roll is left? So he only had 3/5. And left means we're going to subtract. But we have to remember when we're subtracting fractions, we have to have a common denominator. Well, 3/20 cannot be simplified, so we're going to have to scale up the 3/5. So 5 can actually change also to a 20 by multiplying this by 4. So I would also need to multiply the numerator by 4, which gives me 12. So we have 12/20 minus 3/20, which gives us 9/20 of the wire is left over. Okay, in the next question, it says 3 groups of students are sharing leftover pizza. They all were the same original size. In which group does each student get the most pizza? Explain your choice. So this first one says 6 students equally share 3/4 of a pizza. Well, when you see equally share, division should pop in your mind. Okay, so 6 students are getting that. So we should be thinking 3/4 divided by 6. Well, we know that we need to change 6 to improper. So that would be 6/1. And then when we're dividing fractions, we are going to multiply by the reciprocal, or our little quick reminder is copy dot flip. So which would give us 3/24. So they would get 3/24 of that pizza. So this is for the first group. Okay, the next group says 3 students equally share 1/3. So they're getting 1/3 of the pizza divided by 3. Once again, make the 3 improper, and then we're going to do multiply by the reciprocal, or copy dot flip. So 1/3 times 1/3 equals 1/9. And actually, we could have simplified the 3/24 because 3 goes into that. I just realized that. So this becomes 1/8. So the first one's 1/8. The second one's 1/9, and the last group is 4 students equally share 2/3. So 2/3 divided by 4, and we're going to say 4/1, multiply by the reciprocal, 2/3 times 1/4, which gives me 2/12, which if we simplify that is 1/6. And you're wanting to find the one that has the greatest piece. So remember, we talked about this would be like 1 slice out of 9 slices, 1 out of 8, 1 out of 6. Well, 6 is going to have the biggest slices, and you get one of those biggest slices. So you would want to be sitting at this table right here, because 1/6 is greater than 1/9 and 1/8. Okay, number 4. Sammy's mother bought 2.5 pounds of blueberries on Monday. Sammy ate 1/4 of the blueberries before he went to bed. How many pounds of blueberries did Sammy eat? So we see that 1/4 of again. That should trigger in our mind, okay, we are multiplying, because when we multiply by a fraction, it actually divides it up into fourths for us. So we should be thinking, I'm actually going to write this down here, or over here to the side, 2.5 times 1/4. But we need to make 2.5 improper, so 2 times 2 plus that 1 gives us 5/2 times 1/4, which gives us the 5/8. So he ate 5/8 of a pound of blueberries. Okay, then it says how many pounds of blueberries were left over. So that's very similar to the last question that they asked about the wire. So leftover means to subtract. So he had 2.5 pounds, but he ate 5/8 of a pound. So once again, you can make this improper and say, okay, I have 5/2 minus 5/8, but because these denominators are not the same, you cannot subtract. So we're going to make them the same. So I know I can multiply 2 by 4 to get 8. So I'm going to change this to 8, so I also need to multiply this by 8, which gives me 28, and I'm going to subtract 5/8, which leaves me with 15/8. And if I simplify that, that gives me 1 7/8. So that is how much blueberries are left over, is 1 7/8. Okay, part C. On Tuesday, Sammy ate 1/3 of the leftover blueberries. How many pounds of blueberries did Sammy eat? Well, you should see that 1/3 of, once again, triggering in your brain, multiply. Okay, so we are going to it's of the leftover blueberries, which is your answer here. So you have 1 7/8 times 1/3. But once again, we need to make this improper. 1 times 8 is 8 plus 7. So you have 15/8 times 1/3, which gives you 15/24. Okay, the next question says, which you could simplify. They both can be divided by 3 if you wanted to, which gives you 5/8. Okay, did Sammy eat more blueberries on Monday or Tuesday? Well, if you look, he ate 5/8 here and 5/8 here, so he ate the same amount each night. Now on to question 5. We are comparing fractions using benchmark fractions. Since it's your test, know that on the test you don't have to just use benchmark fractions. If you want to use common denominators, feel free to do that as well. So on number 5, we're looking at 4/5 versus 7/15. Well, we know 4/5 is close to 1 whole, and 7/15 is close to a half, so 4/5 would be greater than 7/15. Then number 6, we have 5/10, which we know is exactly a half, 8/16, which is also a half, so these are equivalent. Then we have 4/8, which is exactly a half, and 7/14, which is exactly a half, so these are also equivalent. Okay, on question 8, what is 15% of each given restaurant check? So they're wanting us to find 15% of each check. Explain how you calculated, show your answer, round to the nearest hundredths, because remember, money is in the hundredths place. So we have $36, so we can do $36, change 15% to its decimal equivalent, which is 15 hundredths, and we can multiply. So 6 times 5 is 30, 5 times 3 is 15, plus the 30 is 18, placeholder, 1 times 6, 1 times 3, this would be 14, and 5. And then we have 1, 2 decimal places that we are multiplying with, so there should be 2 in your answer. So the answer for A is $5.40. Next, we have $18.24, and we want to know 15% of that, so we're going to do the same thing, $18.24 times that 15%. So we have 20, carry the 2, 10 plus the 2 is 12. Carry your 1, 5 times 8 is 41. Carry the 4, and 5 times 1 is 5 plus the 4 is 9. Placeholder, 1 times 4, 1 times 2, 1 times 8, 1 times 1. Then we can add this, and you get this number. But we have to remember that there are 4 decimal places, so there needs to be 4 in our answer. So 1, 2, 3, 4 would be here. So if we're thinking about money, it cannot be written with 3 decimal places. So we need to think, what does the 6 tell the 3 to do? Well, it tells it to round up. So the answer would be $2.74 for question B on number 8. Okay, on number 9, we are ordering the following numbers from greatest to least. So this is a mixture of decimals, fractions, percents. So we need to decide which type of numbers we want them all to be before we compare them. So I'm going to change them all to decimals to compare them. So notice we are putting them in greatest to least as well, which sometimes catches us off guard because we just normally instinctively want to put things in least to greatest order. And I can guarantee you on this semester exam, if they have a question where it's greatest to least, there's also going to be the order of least to greatest. So make sure you read and underline important things in the question. So 75 hundredths are 80%, 40% would be 40 hundredths, and then 1/5, we can tell that that would be 2 tenths by scaling that up. So that would be 2 tenths. 1 is already decimal. 2/3. So if you don't remember, 2/3 is one of the ones that we considered our memorizing decimals, but if you don't have it memorized, just divide the numerator by the denominator. 3 cannot go into 2, so we add a 0 in our decimals, but 3 goes into 20 6 times, which gives us 18. And then you get 20 again, and you start noticing a pattern that it keeps happening, so this is repeating. So we can say this is 66 hundredths repeating. And then 90% we can say is 90 hundredths, and 5 hundredths is already in a decimal. So we're looking for the greatest. Well, if I'm thinking about this, 1 whole is the only whole number, so this is the greatest first. So, and I'm going to mark them off after we go through them. And then after 1 whole would be the 90 hundredths, or 90%. We should probably write the actual number and not what we changed it to. So next would be 90% because it's 90 hundredths. After that, we would have the 75 hundredths. Then after that one, you would have the 2/3 because that is 66 repeating hundredths. And then the 40%, let's see if we can erase some of that just so we can have more room to write. Okay, and then we would have the 40%, and then 1/5, and finally the 5 hundredths. So this had to be our greatest number, so it's a whole number, all the way to the lowest number of like 5 cents or 5 hundredths. Okay, in question 10, we are plotting points to represent each decimal on the number line. So first we need to know what each thing means. So I'm going to go through real quick and count how many places we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So between here there's 10. So this is counting by tenths. So I should be thinking like this is 1/10, 2/10. So that's what we should be thinking. So if I know that 75 hundredths needs to be in between the 7 and 8 tenths. So I'm going to go ahead and finish writing my tenths down real quick just to help me. So there is my 7 and 8ths. So A should be right there, the 75 hundredths. B, we have 1 and 4 hundredths, so I'm going to finish writing. So then it starts back at 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10. So B would be exactly right here. So we've got B done, we have A done. 6/10, that one is also easy because it is exactly on a point. So that would be C. And then D is 2 and 2/10. So if we know these are tenths, this would be 1/10, 2/10. So right here would be D. 29 hundredths. So that would be really close. So you have to think like 3/10, you just add a 0 and that becomes 30. So it's going to be really close to the 3/10. So it's going to be about right there is where E would be. And then 1 and 55 hundredths. So we could say this would be 1.5, this would be 1.6. So 155 would be in between there, and that would be F. If you have any questions on 1 through 10, let me know at school and I'll be more than happy to help you. Stay tuned for the follow-up videos for the rest of the review. Don't forget to study.